Today, I want to remind you of a simple but powerful truth. Small steps taken daily can lead to massive results eventually. In a world obsessed with overnight success and instant gratification, it's easy to underestimate the power of consistent effort. We scroll through highlight reels on social media, watch success stories unfold in seconds, and forget that behind every triumph is a trail of quiet, often invisible, steps taken over time. Think of a mighty tree. It begins as a tiny seed. A few drops of water, some sunlight each day, and time turn that seed into something unshakable. The same principle applies to our goals, our habits, and our growth. You don't have to make giant leaps every day. You just have to show up. One workout, one page, one healthy meal, one mindful breath, they add up. And the beauty is, those small efforts compound. That's the secret behind massive results. The greatest transformations don't come from radical action once in a while, but from simple actions repeated consistently. So whether you're chasing a dream, building a skill, or trying to become the best version of yourself, remember, progress isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, and that's okay. Just keep going. Small steps every day. We often glorify intensity, the idea of going all in, making massive changes overnight, or burning the midnight oil to achieve something spectacular. Intensity feels exciting. It gives the illusion of progress. But what we forget is that intensity is difficult to sustain. It often leads to burnout, disappointment, or inconsistency. On the other hand, consistency, though it may seem slow and unremarkable, is what leads to long-term success. The person who exercises moderately every day will likely be healthier in the long run than the one who trains obsessively for a few weeks and then quits. It's the same principle that applies across all areas of life. The things we do regularly matter more than the things we do occasionally. Consistency builds rhythm. When you commit to doing something regularly, no matter how small, you establish a pattern. That pattern starts to define your daily behavior, which eventually shapes your lifestyle. This rhythm removes the friction of decision making. For example, if you write just 300 words a day, writing becomes part of your life. You no longer ask, should I write today? It becomes a given, like brushing your teeth or making your bed. This rhythm is what turns short-term effort into long-term mastery. Intensity may rely on motivation, but consistency relies on discipline, and discipline is what carries you forward when motivation fades. Think of learning a language. You could attend a 2-week crash course and immerse yourself entirely. You might even see some progress, but if you don't keep practicing afterward, your progress fades quickly. Now imagine spending just 15 minutes a day practicing that language. Over a year, that's more than 90 hours of focused effort. The results will not only be better, they'll last. The reason is simple. The brain responds better to spaced repetition than to crammed, infrequent bursts. Consistency aligns with how we naturally learn, grow, and retain information. This concept is just as true in relationships as it is in personal development. A grand romantic gesture once a year cannot make up for everyday neglect. What strengthens a bond is the regular check-ins, the small acts of kindness, the simple moments of connection. In parenting, leadership, or friendship, it's the reliable presence that matters. Intensity may impress in the short term, but consistency earns trust. It tells others that you're dependable, that you're in it for the long haul, and that something intensity simply cannot guarantee. In business and entrepreneurship, too, consistency is a game changer. Launching a product or running a campaign with a burst of energy may bring some results, but sustaining success requires a steady effort. A brand isn't built overnight. It's crafted slowly through consistent messaging, dependable service, and regular engagement. Entrepreneurs who show up daily, adapt to feedback, and keep pushing forward even during slow seasons are the ones who ultimately break through. While intensity can get attention, it's consistency that builds reputation and trust over time. There's a psychological benefit to consistency as well. When you engage in small, regular actions, you reinforce a positive self-image. You start to see yourself as someone who follows through, who honors commitments, who gets things done. This internal confidence accumulates with each completed task. In contrast, sporadic intensity often creates self-doubt. You might feel great after a big push, but when you can't sustain it, you start to question your ability to succeed. Consistency removes that emotional roller coaster and replaces it with steady confidence and peace of mind. Moreover, consistency makes room for progress even on your worst days. Life isn't linear. Some days you'll feel tired, distracted, or discouraged. That's when intensity fails, because intensity requires high energy, focus, and drive. Consistency, however, adapts. It says, even if I can't give 100% today, I can still give 10%. It lowers the barrier of entry and allows you to maintain forward momentum, even when conditions aren't ideal. That ability to keep going, however minimally, is what keeps the dream alive during difficult seasons. Ultimately, consistency compounds. Just like saving a small amount of money regularly leads to wealth over time, small efforts build massive results when repeated consistently. Each small action may feel insignificant in isolation, but over time they layer on top of each other. Day by day, they build skill, discipline, and results. Consistency may lack the drama of intensity, but it has something far more valuable: staying power. And in any long-term pursuit, staying power is the ultimate advantage. At first glance, small habits can seem trivial, almost too insignificant to matter. Drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning, reading 5 pages a day, taking a 10-minute walk after dinner, these actions don't feel like they move the needle. But that's the deceptive nature of small habits. Their impact is not measured in a single day or even a week. Their true power lies in the cumulative effect they have over months and years. These tiny actions, repeated consistently, quietly rewire your behavior, alter your mindset, and transform the trajectory of your life. The reason small habits are so effective is because they are achievable and sustainable. When a habit is small, it doesn't require massive motivation or willpower to perform. You're not waiting for the right moment or trying to summon up enormous energy to start. You simply do it, and by doing it regularly, you normalize the behavior. It becomes part of your identity. You no longer say, "I'm trying to be healthy." You say, "I'm someone who drinks water first thing in the morning." That subtle shift from action to identity is where the real change begins. One of the most important truths about habits is that they work silently, often invisibly. You might not notice the difference after 1 week of journaling, stretching, or meditating, but after 3 months, 6 months, a year, that's when the transformation becomes undeniable. You become calmer, more focused, more disciplined, not because of one massive overhaul, but because of hundreds of small, consistent choices. The world may not see the change immediately, but internally you begin to feel stronger, more capable, and more aligned with who you want to be. The beauty of small habits is that they are gateways to larger behaviors. Doing 1 push-up can lead to a full workout. Writing 1 sentence can turn into a page. Flossing 1 tooth can become an entire dental care routine. Once you get started, momentum builds naturally. Small habits lower the resistance to action. They help you bypass procrastination by making the task so easy that it feels silly not to do it. Over time, these small beginnings evolve into comprehensive life-enhancing routines without ever feeling overwhelming. From a psychological perspective, small habits offer frequent wins, and those wins are essential for building confidence and motivation. When you set massive goals and fall short, it can damage your self-esteem and discourage you from trying again. But when you aim for a small win and achieve it, your brain releases dopamine, reinforcing the behavior. Each successful repetition strengthens your belief that you can change, and that belief fuels further growth. This is why building small habits is not just about behavior change, it's about identity change. Moreover, small habits create structure and predictability, which reduce mental fatigue. When your day has built-in moments of intention, a morning routine, a mindful pause at lunch, a short walk after work, your brain doesn't have to negotiate or make tough decisions constantly. You free up cognitive energy for more complex tasks. This clarity and order allow you to navigate life with greater calm and focus. In a chaotic world, small habits act as anchors that keep you grounded and resilient. In addition, small habits often have a ripple effect. Improving one area of your life can lead to positive changes in others. For example, a habit of sleeping at the same time each night might lead to better mood, improved concentration, and healthier eating patterns. One small improvement becomes the foundation for a whole cascade of positive behaviors. This chain reaction can dramatically improve your overall well-being, and it all starts with one tiny, consistent change. Small habits also teach us patience and faith in the process. They show us that we don't have to overhaul our entire lives overnight to experience meaningful change. They remind us that transformation is not a one-time event, but a process of becoming one that unfolds slowly and quietly in the background of our daily lives. The greatness we aspire to is not found in grand gestures, but in the humble repetition of positive actions done day after day. Over time, these small efforts shape our destiny in ways we never imagined. Progress is not always visible in the moment. Often we go through our routines, show up day after day, and wonder if we're getting anywhere. But what we must understand is that progress is cumulative. Like drops of water filling a glass, each effort adds up even when we can't yet see the results. Success, growth, mastery, these are built from hundreds, even thousands, of small moments that slowly stack on top of one another. Just because change isn't immediately obvious doesn't mean it's not happening. Progress is often silent before it becomes significant. Imagine learning to play an instrument. At first, it feels awkward. Your fingers don't cooperate, the notes sound off, and your timing is inconsistent. But if you practice a little each day, those individual sessions, though seemingly unimpressive, accumulate. Weeks later, your fingers move with more confidence. Months later, you can play entire songs. Years later, you may play from memory with fluency and expression. No single practice session made you a musician, but the collection of them did. That's the magic of cumulative progress. You improve a little each day until one day you realize how far you've come. This principle is true in all areas of personal development. Whether you're building physical strength, developing a skill, managing your finances, or working on your mental health, every small, consistent effort is a deposit into your future success. A single workout won't change your body. One therapy session won't heal your mind. One saved dollar won't make you rich, but repeated over time, these actions compound. Each one makes the next a little easier, a little more natural. Over time, they create momentum, and momentum is what propels lasting transformation. The problem is that our culture often celebrates breakthroughs without acknowledging the buildup. We see someone achieve a major goal and assume they got there quickly. What we don't see are the hundreds of hours spent behind the scenes making progress that no one else noticed. This creates a false standard one where only dramatic change feels valuable. But in reality, true progress happens in the quiet moments when no one is watching. The real work happens when you show up on days you don't feel like it. Push through small failures and keep going without immediate reward. There's a compounding nature to consistent effort, much like interest in a savings account. At first, the returns are small. You might not see much difference from day to day, but eventually you hit a tipping point, a moment when the results start to multiply. The time invested begins to pay dividends. Your earlier efforts become the foundation for accelerated progress. This is why those who stay patient and persistent often experience what seems like overnight success. But it's not overnight at all. It's the cumulative result of quiet, consistent work over time. Progress also builds self-trust. Each time you follow through on your commitment, even in a small way, you prove to yourself that you are reliable. These small victories stack up psychologically as well. They make you more confident, more resilient, and more committed to the path. You begin to recognize that your efforts matter not just because of the outcomes, but because they shape who you are becoming. You no longer rely solely on external validation. The process itself becomes rewarding. That internal shift is one of the most powerful signs of real progress. It's also important to note that cumulative progress is not linear. Growth often comes in waves, slow, steady build-up followed by sudden breakthroughs. There may be times when you feel stuck, like nothing's changing, but if you remain consistent, you're still accumulating experience, knowledge, and resilience. Then, almost unexpectedly, something clicks. A new level is reached, and it all makes sense. The plateau was not a pause in progress, but a preparation for the next leap. Understanding this helps you stay grounded through the ups and downs of the journey. In the end, cumulative progress teaches us that change doesn't have to be dramatic to be meaningful. It reminds us that every small action counts, and that persistence pays off in ways we can't always predict. Even when we don't see results immediately, we are laying bricks one by one for something larger and more powerful than we can currently imagine. Each step forward, no matter how small, contributes to a future that is built steadily, intentionally, and with purpose. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in personal growth, and it's created through repetition. The more often you do something, the easier it becomes to keep doing it. At the beginning, everything feels hard: getting up early, exercising, journaling, staying disciplined. But once you've done it a few times, the resistance starts to fade. Your body adjusts, your mind adapts, and eventually the action that once felt difficult becomes part of your normal routine. This is the power of momentum. It turns effort into ease and hesitation into habit. Think of a train sitting still on the tracks. At first, it takes enormous energy to get it moving, but once it starts rolling, it becomes almost unstoppable. The same is true with any habit or discipline. Starting is hard. You might feel awkward, unmotivated, even doubtful. But with every repetition, you build forward motion. That motion generates confidence, clarity, and consistency. Suddenly, the thing that once required conscious effort becomes second nature. You no longer fight to begin, you fight to stop. This shift is only possible through the steady build-up of momentum over time. Repetition rewires your brain. Each time you repeat an action, you're strengthening neural pathways associated with that behavior. It's the same way musicians develop muscle memory or athletes hone their reflexes. The more often you engage in a task, the more efficient your brain becomes at executing it. This neurological efficiency is why repetition breeds momentum. You're literally building the mental infrastructure that supports automatic action. Once that structure is in place, effort is no longer spent on getting started, it's spent on improving and refining. Momentum also makes you emotionally invested. When you've repeated a behavior enough times, you develop a sense of attachment to the progress you've made. You don't want to break the chain. You don't want to lose your streak. That psychological investment becomes a form of accountability. It keeps you going on days when you're tempted to quit. The more days you show up, the harder it becomes to walk away. Repetition transforms your actions from something you try to do into something you just do, and that consistency breeds unstoppable drive. What's more, repetition helps you push through plateaus. In any growth process, there are moments where progress feels flat. You don't feel stronger, faster, smarter, and that can be discouraging. But if you've built momentum through repetition, you're more likely to push through that temporary lull. You've established a rhythm, and that rhythm carries you even when motivation is low. Many people give up during these plateaus because they rely on bursts of energy. Those who repeat the work, even when it's dull or difficult, are the ones who break through and level up. Another incredible benefit of momentum through repetition is that it saves mental energy. When you do something regularly, it becomes a system, not a decision. You don't have to debate whether or not to do it. You just follow the pattern you've built. This frees your mind to focus on creativity, strategy, and improvement rather than constantly negotiating with yourself. It also reduces decision fatigue, one of the main reasons people fall off track. With repetition, action becomes automatic, and that automation allows for greater focus on what truly matters. Momentum also influences your identity. The more often you perform a behavior, the more you start to see yourself as someone who lives that behavior. Repetition not only builds skill, but also builds belief. If you consistently write every day, you begin to see yourself as a writer. If you train consistently, you start to embody the mindset of an athlete. This internal alignment creates a powerful feedback loop. The more you repeat the action, the more it defines you, and the more it defines you, the more motivated you are to repeat the action. Finally, repetition brings clarity. At first, you may not fully understand why you're doing something or what the results will be, but through consistent repetition, the path becomes clearer. You learn more about yourself, your limits, and your potential. You begin to see patterns, recognize progress, and refine your approach. What started as trial and error becomes purposeful practice, and that clarity fuels even more momentum. You no longer move blindly, you move with direction and confidence, driven forward by the engine of your own repeated effort. Motivation is often misunderstood as the fuel for success, but the truth is, motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes based on how we feel, what we've experienced, or even how well we slept. You might wake up one day full of energy and excitement to chase your goals, only to feel exhausted and uninspired the next. If you rely on motivation alone to make progress, you'll only take action when it feels good. That's why discipline matters more. Discipline is the ability to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. Discipline is built on commitment, not emotion. It's the decision to show up and stick to a process regardless of circumstances. Motivation asks, do I feel like it today? Discipline says, it doesn't matter how I feel, this is what I do. That shift in mindset is what separates those who achieve their goals from those who fall short. People who consistently succeed are not always more talented or inspired. They've simply trained themselves to act in alignment with their goals rather than their moods. Developing discipline doesn't mean becoming robotic or emotionless. It means strengthening your ability to follow through. It's about recognizing that your goals deserve to be prioritized over temporary feelings. You might not always be excited to work out, read, study, or create, but if you do it anyway, you're building inner strength. Every time you act with discipline, you reinforce a message to yourself: I can be trusted to follow through. That self-trust becomes a powerful foundation for long-term success and self-respect. One of the biggest benefits of discipline is that it creates stability. When your actions are consistent, your life becomes more predictable and intentional. You're no longer at the mercy of fluctuating moods or external distractions. You take control of your behavior, which leads to better results. Whether it's in health, career, finances, or personal growth, the most dependable progress comes from routine, not from rare moments of inspiration. Discipline builds that routine and allows your life to be guided by purpose instead of impulse. Discipline also plays a critical role in overcoming resistance and procrastination. We all face moments when the work feels hard, the outcome feels uncertain, or we doubt our ability to continue. Motivation in those moments is often absent, but discipline allows you to move forward anyway. It reminds you that action leads to progress, and progress generates new motivation. Ironically, the best way to regain motivation is not to wait for it, it's to take disciplined action. Discipline is the bridge between inaction and the return of momentum. The more you practice discipline, the easier it becomes to maintain. At first, it feels like a struggle pushing yourself out of bed early, saying no to distractions, staying focused when you'd rather give up. But over time, these actions become your new normal. You build routines and habits that reduce the need for constant decision making. Eventually, discipline evolves into a lifestyle. What was once hard becomes automatic. You no longer have to battle yourself daily because your values and actions are aligned. There's also a deep sense of pride that comes from discipline. Motivation might make you feel good temporarily, but discipline gives you something better: confidence earned through consistency. You know you can rely on yourself. You've proven that even when things get tough, you don't quit. That inner strength becomes unshakable. It spills over into every area of life: relationships, work, creativity, health. The discipline you build in one area begins to raise your standards in others, and you become a more grounded, resilient version of yourself. Ultimately, discipline is the tool that allows you to honor your long-term vision over your short-term impulses. It helps you keep showing up day after day, building toward a future that matters to you. While motivation may spark the journey, it's discipline that carries it through to completion. Success doesn't belong to the most excited or the most passionate. It belongs to those who are willing to do the work, especially when it's hard, especially when they don't feel like it. Discipline is what turns intention into action, and action into achievement. One of the most common traps people fall into when trying to achieve their goals is over-relying on intensity. We're drawn to the idea of pushing ourselves to the limit: big, dramatic efforts that promise fast results. A 2-hour workout, a weekend long writing sprint, a crash diet, but intensity, while exciting, is rarely sustainable. What actually creates lasting change is consistency, the ability to show up and do the work, not just once in a while, but day after day, even when it's not exciting or convenient. Consistency builds results that last. Intensity often burns out before it even begins. Consistency provides structure and rhythm. When you commit to doing something every day or every week, no matter how small, you begin to form a dependable routine. That routine becomes the foundation of your progress. Unlike intensity, which relies on spurts of energy and motivation, consistency is about commitment, It's about showing up regardless of how you feel. And over time, that regular practice compounds. What starts as a small, daily effort can lead to massive results because it's being done again and again with persistence and patience. People often underestimate what they can accomplish through small, consistent actions because the changes are subtle at first. You might not see visible results after 1 week of healthy eating, meditation, studying, or journaling. But as weeks turn into months, you begin to notice shifts in your mindset, your habits, your body, or your skill set. That's the quiet, steady power of consistency. It works in the background, slowly layering growth until one day you look back and realize how far you've come. And the best part, because the growth was gradual, it's far more sustainable and less likely to collapse. Consistency also builds trust not just from others, but within yourself. Every time you follow through on a commitment, no matter how small, you reinforce your own integrity. You prove to yourself that you can be relied upon. That builds confidence and a sense of personal reliability, which is essential when pursuing long-term goals. On the other hand, relying on intense bursts often leads to guilt and disappointment when you can't maintain the pace. Consistency, even in small doses, helps you avoid that emotional roller coaster and build a healthier, more positive relationship with your goals. Another critical benefit of consistency is that it allows for adaptation and improvement over time. When you do something regularly, you have more opportunities to learn and adjust. You gather feedback, refine your technique, and evolve your strategy. With intensity, there are fewer reps, fewer data points, and less progress. Think of it like watering a plant. Doing it once a month with a flood won't help it grow, but daily, small watering will. The same applies to your habits, skills, and personal growth. The slow, steady approach creates deeper roots and stronger outcomes. Consistency also creates momentum. The more often you repeat a behavior, the easier it becomes to keep going. You establish routines, habits, and systems that reduce friction and increase follow-through. Instead of relying on willpower, your environment and habits begin to work in your favor. That momentum becomes your greatest asset. It carries you through days when motivation is low or life gets hectic. Intensity can spark initial excitement, but only consistency can carry you through the inevitable challenges and fluctuations of life. Furthermore, consistency is inclusive. It makes success accessible to everyone, regardless of background, talent, or starting point. You don't have to be the most gifted, the most connected, or the most knowledgeable to succeed. You just have to be consistent. That means showing up when others quit, practicing when others procrastinate, and staying the course when things get hard. In the long run, the person who works consistently, even at a moderate pace, will outperform the one who goes hard and then disappears. In life, the tortoise almost always beats the hare. Finally, consistency fosters identity change. When you act in alignment with a goal consistently, even in small ways, you begin to see yourself differently. A person who writes a paragraph a day starts to see themselves as a writer. Someone who walks every morning starts to view themselves as active. This identity shift reinforces behavior, creating a powerful feedback loop between who you are and what you do. Intensity may inspire temporary change, but consistency reshapes who you are at your core, and that's the kind of transformation that lasts a lifetime. The compound effect is one of the most powerful yet misunderstood principles in personal development. At its core, it's the idea that small, consistent actions, when repeated over time, lead to massive, transformative outcomes. Like compound interest in finance, the results might seem insignificant at first, almost invisible. But with time, the impact grows exponentially. What starts as a small daily habit can evolve into a life life-changing force simply through repetition and patience. It's not magic. It's mathematics and momentum working together quietly and reliably. Most people overestimate what they can achieve in a week and underestimate what they can achieve in a year or 10. That's because we're conditioned to look for quick wins, instant gratification, and dramatic progress. But the compound effect plays out differently. It rewards those who are willing to play the long game. You may not notice much change after writing 100 words a day for a week, or saving a few dollars each day. But do that for a year, and you've written a book or built a significant financial cushion. That's the beauty of the compound effect in action. Small steps create big results over time. This principle doesn't just apply to success, it applies to failure too. Negative habits compound just as quickly, and sometimes even more easily. Missing one workout won't hurt, but missing one a week for several months adds up. Eating one unhealthy meal won't make a difference, but a pattern of poor choices quietly impacts your health. Neglecting to invest in your relationships, your education, or yourself. Care might not show consequences right away, but over time, the absence of effort becomes a mountain of regret. The compound effect works both ways, and that's why awareness and consistency are so critical. What makes the compound effect so challenging is that the early stages feel unrewarding. You're putting in effort, but the payoff seems non-existent. That's where most people give up, not because the process doesn't work, but because they don't stick with it long enough to see the return. It's like planting a seed. You water it daily, tend to the soil, and wait. Nothing seems to happen for a while, but underground roots are growing, the foundation is forming. Eventually, the plant breaks through, and the growth seems sudden. In truth, it was the result of consistent care all along. The compound effect teaches us to value the invisible wins, the days we showed up when no one noticed, the small actions that didn't feel significant, the boring repetitions that built our discipline. These moments are the bricks of success. Alone, they may seem unimpressive, but together they form walls, buildings, entire lives. The power lies not in the size of each action, but in their accumulation. The person who commits to the compound effect understands that every step matters, even when it doesn't feel meaningful in the moment. Another key element of the compound effect is that it creates leverage. As your small efforts accumulate, they begin to generate momentum. Habits become ingrained. Processes become easier. You become more efficient, more focused, more resilient. What once required great effort becomes your default. And because you're operating from a stronger foundation, your future efforts generate even more powerful results. You reach a point where the results seem to multiply without increasing your workload, not because it's easy, but because you've put in the foundational work. The compound effect also deepens your belief in yourself. When you see the results of your steady effort over time, when you realize that you created this progress, one decision at a time, it builds unshakable confidence. You no longer rely on luck or talent or external motivation. You know that you can create change because you've done it before. That internal certainty is priceless. It turns goals into inevitabilities and fear into fuel. You're not hoping for change. You're building it, brick by brick, day by day. Ultimately, the compound effect reveals a profound truth, that greatness is not born from a single grand gesture, but from the accumulation of many small ones. It teaches us to be patient, to trust the process, and to honor the value of persistence. The person who embraces this principle doesn't need to rush or force results. They understand that the work they do today, however small, is an investment in a future that is already being shaped quietly, steadily, and powerfully. In closing, remember that every great achievement, every lasting change, begins not with a giant leap, but with a single small step taken consistently. It's the daily commitment to show up, even when it's hard, even when progress feels invisible, that ultimately shapes our lives. The journey may be slow and steady, but it is steady progress that builds momentum, rewires our minds, and transforms who we are. So don't be discouraged by how far you still have to go. Instead, celebrate the small victories along the way. Trust that your efforts, no matter how modest they seem today, are compounding into something remarkable. Discipline, consistency, and patience are your greatest allies in this process. Embrace the power of small steps. Let each day be an opportunity to move forward one deliberate action at a time. Over time, those actions will add up, and the massive results you seek will no longer be distant dreams, but your new reality. Keep going, keep believing, and know that your persistence will pay off beyond what you can imagine.